You've tuned into the Bellingham Podcast for the week of October 27th, 2019. This is episode 135.
135.
From that slightly under-caffeinated city by the Sailor Sea, I am AJ Barcay.
And straight out of 92.26, I am Chris Powell. On this episode, we're continuing our Community Connections Conversation Collection with a leader from the financial sector here in Whatcom County. You probably have seen the institutions all over the place. We're going to go in depth and find out what's what with WECU. Won't you join us? This, my rich and talented friends, is the Bellingham Podcast.
Well, I see we're coming out of Sherwood Forest, and I'm feeling like Robin Hood. How you doing, Chris?
I'm saving my pennies and quarters for that rainy day fund because you never know when the sheriff might be taxing us.
Well, I heard that makes sense.
Oh, my gosh. Are you kidding me? All right, ladies and gentlemen, stick with us because it will get better in this episode. That was horrible.
Come on. How you doing, Chris? How you doing?
Dandy. I had the opportunity to interview Jennifer Kutcher, President and CEO of Whatcom Educational Credit Union. But before we get to the interview, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to my podcast partner in crime, who will not be accepting any sort of lauding or compliments on his behalf. But I'm taking the microphone away from him. You can't hear him right now because
Give it back. Give it back.
I just want to give you props for episodes 134, 133, and 132. If you go back in time, kiddos, that was our 3-part series on coffee and the amount of research you did to come up with the origins, the types of coffee, and cool places around not just Whatcom County, but Island, Skagit counties, and the Lower Mainland. That was a lot of good work. I just kind of just went for it myself, but that was a good conversation.
Thanks, dude.
All right, so had a great conversation with Jennifer Kutcher. I was able to find out a couple little-known facts that one might not be aware of for a president and CEO of a large credit union here in the county. So without talking any further, let's go to the interview with Jennifer Kutcher, President and CEO of Whatcom Educational Credit Union. Well, Jennifer Kutcher, President and CEO of Whatcom Educational Credit Union, thank you so much for joining us on the Bellingham Podcast.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we've now, little known fact for the listeners out there, Jennifer and I both attended Western Washington University as undergraduates, and we probably had similar classes because you graduated in 96 like me, but your degree was in finance and mine was in MIS. And so I have a feeling that you were the curve killer in a lot of those courses.
I don't know about that.
But what do you remember from your undergraduate days at Western in the mid-'90s? What was the college experience like for you back then?
Yeah. Well, for me, one of the reasons I came to Bellingham was because of just the community. So part of it was just nature and being so close to some beautiful trails in the outdoors, and the campus at Western was just amazing. But as well, what it drew me to Western, of course, was the small classroom sizes,
yes.
That ability to really learn in a small classroom setting and connect with professors. And so as I reflect back, I think about how lucky I was to be able to, my first time away from home, to land in a community that cared about the students, where I could explore and where I could learn and grow. And so as I reflect back, that's just something that's near and dear to me. And I remember I lived off of Bill McDonald Parkway, I got everywhere via bike, and I quickly learned that you can't let a little rain stop you.
Of course
not.
We live
you
in
just get out there and you go, and you get to class however you need to. So it was great. Yeah.
So and not just in Western, but we both have been around Bellingham for over a couple decades now. We'll let our listeners do the math at home. But what do you remember early on in the community after graduating and entering in the professional business world? What was life like in Bellingham for you?
I was fortunate to be able to get a job locally, and I, to this day, appreciative of that. Being in a vibrant community, went to work for Whatcom Medical Bureau, and so it was, again, a local organization. Since that time, of course, it's no longer here, and so things have shifted and changed within the community. But I was just very thankful that at that time I could afford to
Yes.
pay for an apartment. So
Yes.
that's one thing that I look back and think of the cost of living, my ability to graduate from college and be able to pay for a 1-bedroom apartment. That really allowed me to continue to stay here, to begin my journey in my career, and continue to be part of this community.
Excellent. So let's talk about WECU. Who's been around for quite some time.
Yes.
Now, I know that one of the slogans that we have is people over profits. And if there's one thing that I've learned about Whatcom Educational Credit Union is that they're very involved in the community. Yes. And could you explain to us, mainly me, who may not know the difference, but what would be the difference between a credit union and a banking institution such as Bank of America or other national franchise?
There's often 3 things we do talk about. Those of us in the credit union world, we talk about the difference in structure. So being a not-for-profit financial cooperative, so we're member-centric. Everything we do is based on supporting our members, reinvesting in our members, in the organization, and in the community, versus often national banks. They're often pursuing profit and looking at returns for stockholders. So that's kind of that fundamental difference. But along with structure, we talk a lot about value and impact. So value can come in many different ways. And from my perspective, I'm so proud to be able to be part of an organization that values what we provide as far as financial products and services that are hopefully more cost effective for people in our community, as well as noting that the decisions we make are local, whether they're loan decisions, and that we're here to serve our members and help them. We are of the community and the community because our employees are here, we're serving members here, and so it just makes sense that we do what's right by the community. The impact goes, again, beyond just dollars and cents, but how can we help uplift the whole community by giving and supporting those in need?
So along those lines, how has WECU supported this community, Bellingham and Whatcom County, as times have changed? Because in the 90s, you made mention, it was a little bit more affordable. Life was a little less populated in this county.
Yes.
How has WECU been involved in the community over at least the past couple of decades since you've been involved?
Sure, thank you. That's a great question. Certainly evolved, and I would say probably the biggest thing we've been privileged to be able to do is as the credit union has grown and continued to be successful, we're able to give back even more to the community. So just continuing to look at how we give. And we have actually one of our guiding principles is making sure that we're responsible to our community and we're community minded. And so we not only give monetary donations when we can to support local nonprofits, we're also rallying our employees. We have, it's called Team WECU, and to volunteer to support nonprofits in our community and to get out there and really give of their time as well. And we often, this last year we launched our inaugural Education First grants, and part of that was just making sure that as we evolve as an organization and continue to be relevant and think of banking isn't where you go, it's what you do, and how do we continue to support our membership as in our community as it changes, we think about how can we honor our past but look forward to the future. So our Education First grants is recognizing we started as Bellingham Teachers Credit Union, 1936.
Oh, wow.
We recognize a part of what we provide is financial education, and with our goal of providing more financial wellness for everybody we can in the community. And that Education First grant process was how can we make sure we're intentional. We still do community builder grants, which are smaller donations to various needs within the community. We also started this last year servant leadership donations, where when we have employees who serve, which we have quite a few employees, including myself, that serve on local nonprofit organizations, we try to make sure we're supporting our employees in those roles and those nonprofits as well.
That's great. I did a little bit of research about the Education First grant program that you mentioned.
Yes.
If correct me if I'm wrong, please, but there was $110,000 donated for the 2019 recipients who have the Whatcom Dream, the Lummi Youth Academy, the Opportunity Council, and BAAY. I can't pronounce it BAAY, but it's a youth theater arts academy. Yes. That's quite a successful program. It sounds like is this the first year for it?
It is a first year for it.
How was that process, and how has that been for these recipients?
Yeah, no, thank you. We it was fantastic to be able to attend the luncheon where we honored them and we were able to give them their grants and just recognize the wonderful work they do for the community. But the process was new again for us. We wanted to make sure we did a lot of research. It took us about 1.5 to 2 years to really hone in on the process because we wanted to make sure we honor everyone. We know there's always a greater need than there is our ability to meet it within the community. So we created within our organization, as well as a member at large, a committee that would accept the applications. And we had 30 really great applications from nonprofits in our community. And it was a really thorough vetting process in which, again, they applied. There were interviews. We did a lot of rating. And what's really important is recognizing that these funds are going to have such a significant impact. So we wanted to make sure we understood what would happen with these dollars and how are they going to improve people's lives and how are they going to be helping individuals learn and grow and be better contributors in the community and be more successful.
Great. So it sounds like, is there a possibility this may be continuing in 2020?
Yes.
In addition to other community-related initiatives? Yes.
So we're committed to constantly thinking about how is our impact on the community, how's it being received, how do we feel about it, and how can we continue to allow that to grow. And again, we couldn't do any of that without our membership and without our members who understand the value and the importance of helping others, their neighbors and friends.
Very good. So Jennifer, I'd like to talk about your professional perspective on things. Okay. So now for many people, you've reached one of the top rungs of a professional ladder as president and CEO of a financial institution with, I believe, over $1 billion in assets, if my researchers be correct.
Over $1.6 billion.
1.6. Well, gosh, it's been yes. I stand corrected. No. So, for a young
finance degree,
exactly. Well, you see, obviously, that's not what I was strong in. For a young person, a young professional, that may be in the workforce right now and working hard, doing what they need to do. Perhaps they're on the lower rungs of that ladder. How would you advise or encourage someone, male or female, as they look way up on that ladder at all those rungs, should they want to arrive at where you are today?
As I reflect back, I always think how grateful I am. Often immediately think about the opportunities that were provided to me and the people who believed in me. So as I look back at my younger self and then look to give advice to others, it would be, just as you mentioned, you need to work hard, recognize what you're currently responsible for and prove that you're dedicated and that you're capable. When opportunities come up to serve maybe in a different way, I encourage folks to take those opportunities and stretch yourself and don't be afraid, because that's also how you learn what you're capable of. Mm-hmm. And the more you do that, the more you learn, the more you grow, and I believe the more it will bring further opportunities to you. Another aspect of it is be involved with your community. Get involved in other, besides in maybe your career in your work. Are there other areas in the community where you could serve and show and maybe stretch your leadership skills? So it's one thing to be extremely competent in what you're doing in your work, but how do you stretch those leadership muscles? And often, if it's not an opportunity right now within your organization, it could be by helping another nonprofit, being on the board. And, when I look back, that was something for me, as I was able to serve on the United Way board, and that was my first board position. And that was certainly exciting. So recognizing that, pursuing opportunities and making it known that you're interested in learning and growing and not being too shy about that, right?
It sounds like you would be suggesting that we embrace the uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
and
yes.
We can't always have this wonderful, easy, path.
No.
And that's it's a little scary at times.
It is very scary.
Try something new that may stretch us.
It is, but I as I look back again, it took to some degree it took somebody saying, "Hey, have you thought about this?" Mm-hmm. And so I actually interned here at WECU when I was a senior at Western, and I even think about an intern. It was an unpaid internship, and I thought, well, I'm gonna work hard. And obviously, I had the opportunity to come back and work here then and continue. But everything you do, no matter where you are in life, do your best and stretch yourself. That phrase, do one thing a day that scares you. I learned that. I heard that. Yeah. I had the opportunity to go to a CEO boot camp early on in my career.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure yet if I really wanted to pursue something like that. But that's where I really learned, you won't know what you're capable of if you don't try.
Sure.
And you don't try something different.
All right.
And you don't stretch yourself.
So I'm going to ask a fairly tough question. You ready? All right.
Okay.
In your 20-plus year career, was there an event that at the time was incredibly difficult to get through, but in hindsight or currently as you reflect back, made you wiser or more resilient today?
One of the lessons I learned early on in my career was that there is a point in which you can't accomplish everything, or you certainly can't accomplish everything well. Uh-huh. And I've always strived to do my best, always. And early in my career, I had the tendency to often say yes and accept things. And what would happen is then I'd become overloaded. Uh-huh. And I remember at one point having this amazing opportunity early on in my career to be part of the strategic planning committee, which included board members. And so I was extremely excited. But what I found is I had stretched myself too thin. And there was a moment in which I was responsible for an aspect of this committee meeting in front of our board of directors, and I wasn't on my game as well as I would have liked. And that was heartbreaking for me. And I remember having the conversation with the CFO after that at the time. He said, well, maybe we need to reassess all of your workload, and maybe you shouldn't be part of that committee anymore. And from my perspective, I thought, oh no, here I am, I'm driven, I want to pursue these opportunities, and here I took on too much. I therefore didn't really accomplish, at the high level of expectation I had for myself. And then I was actually asked to step out and no longer be part of that committee. And that was humbling for myself. And what it really forced me to do is say, hey, I need to realize I can't always say yes to everything. I need to be honest. And how do I make sure going forward I'm prioritizing what's most important, that I'm developing others, that I can't do it all. And again, it was humbling in the sense that I really wanted to be involved, but I also understood why I had to step back, kind of get myself in order before I could continue to move forward, which I was able to continue to move forward and get other opportunities, but it really helped me recognize when I needed to either say no or when I needed to maybe delegate before I took on more.
In hearing you talk about this, could it be somewhat accurate to think that might have been the end of the world for that kind of situation?
Well, yeah, absolutely, and especially because, as you mentioned earlier, I have 21 years here at WECU. So this example I'm mentioning was early on in my career here at WECU, and so I'm thankful that again I had the ability to regroup, rethink, and the support of leadership to say, all right, she's learning from this experience. We'll give her another chance down the road, right? And that's as sitting in the seat I'm in. I think about that for other young professionals who are still learning. For me to try to remember, I was once in their shoes, and how do I help encourage them and share some of what I've learned?
In some occasions, going through a pothole on the highway of your career
right.
Allows you to apply some grace.
That's right.
For a young professional.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you sharing that story.
Yeah, well, thank you.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Let's lighten the conversation a little bit, shall we? I don't want this to be too gut wrenching for this. On the show, AJ and I are always talking about our mindsets, routine changes, or other ways we're tweaking ourselves to try to be better in general. Jennifer.
Yes.
Is there anything that you currently are taking on as maybe a different mindset challenge or a routine, or perhaps something you're modifying in your daily habits that you are hoping will help improve your life?
Well, I truly believe in continuous improvement. And so one of the things as a full-time professional in a leadership role, but also as a mom.
Yes.
So my daughter's in first grade. one of the things I'm working on is how to make sure I'm taking care of myself so I can take care of others, and that I can be fully present with those who I'm with. And so some of the things, and again, having a supportive husband and daughter and thinking about how to do this, I realize I have to make time for myself. So one of the things I'm trying to do is get up earlier in the morning to spend some time exercising, and carving out more time for me to take a few more walks, to eat healthier. And it can be hard when you're in a position where you're go, and I know I'm not the only one in the world, right? Many of us, we live very busy lives, and so that's something I'm trying to do, and it's an ongoing attempt.
So is this exercise during your Jennifer time? Is this
Yes.
exercise include bicycling, like you mentioned before, when you were a student at Western, or what are you doing for your regimen?
Yeah, well, actually, I've been doing kickboxing.
Really?
A little bit of that.
I'm glad I'm on your good side. I hope to be on your good
probably
side.
not as often as I should, but certainly stress relief, and so that's excellent. But probably more hiking, like I said, some kickboxing, trying to get to that a few times a week, and running. I used to run, 10 years ago, I used to run marathons, and so, but that's time consuming. So for me, I have my I'm hoping to do the Jingle Bell Run.
Okay.
So
all right.
sign up for some 5Ks so I can get out the door. Because we live in such a beautiful place. So.
It's safe to say that the head honcho of WECU is someone not to be messed with.
No, you're so
with all that kickboxing. So, from your perspective, what does Bellingham need more of?
Well, the first thing that pops into my mind is affordable housing, but I think that's because that's on a lot of people's minds, and we think about that here at WECU as well. How can we support businesses and support those efforts? But I think we're so fortunate in Bellingham to have this combination of a smaller community that is enriched with a lot of local businesses and local restaurants, and just the beautiful bay and the mountains and lots of parks. I don't know that we could have more parks, but it's wonderful to have such green space, and it's beautiful.
I did notice on Cordata Parkway they are developing another, like there was a big old field area as you approach Horton Way off Cordata Park, where they're developing another park. So here's another one from North Bellingham to be able to enjoy some of that. So there is land that is being used, but hold that thought on the restaurants. We'll get to that in a little while. Yes, we've had some guests on the show that have talked about affordable housing as well, and it is a big issue. If you could have, so here's a general question, but unlock your creativity here for a second. If you could have a magic wand of awesomeness, okay, and you're only allowed one wish,
oh my,
where or what would you use it on here in Bellingham?
Well, I'm just thinking about all those folks who are homeless, and could everyone magically have a home and not have to live on the street? I guess that's one of the things that I think would because that certainly is a need, and you see many in our community who are without. So that's one thing I think
would agree with that one.
Yeah.
My wish would have something very similar to that. I think that's a good one. So with all of my guests on the show, I'm going to give you a pop quiz.
Okay.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay. So pop quiz, Jennifer. Where's your favorite place in town to get a bite to eat?
All right. Well, that one's tough because I love to eat at so many local restaurants. So the ones, as you mentioned, the ones that popped into my head, you'll often find me and my family. We love the Soy House, as well as Pepper Sisters and even Brandywine. So, thinking about local, thinking about those. So
very good.
Very good.
I'm starting to get hungry thinking about those places as well. So best place to get a cup of coffee in the county? Go.
Well, I do frequent Woods Coffee.
Woods Coffee?
Yes,
is there a particular location of Woods that you enjoy?
I drive by one on Lakeway. The other one is I Want a Mocha, right? On Holly. So I can't pick just one.
All right.
So.
Very good. Top 2, top 3 totally works as well.
Thank you.
That's great. Okay, so when your work or non-work life gets to be way stressful. I know that probably doesn't apply to you in some cases. Just kidding. Where in Whatcom County do you go to unwind or reflect or relax?
I would say one of my favorites and probably one of my most frequent, because it's fairly near my home, is Lake Patton. We'll often go there, and there's lots of different things. You know, I can take a jog around the lake, and it's beautiful. I can sit and reflect, or I can go hiking in some of the trails, or take my dog to the dog park. So that's probably one of my favorite spots to just go and unwind and just breathe in this beautiful Northwest air.
It's a beautiful area. I think thousands of people share that favorite
it's not
spot.
Private.
No, that's all right. So, Jennifer, as we're wrapping up, what does we're approaching the holiday season. So what does the upcoming holiday season look like for you and your family? Are there any traditions that you all have for Thanksgiving? You mentioned the Jingle Bell Run that you might be doing.
Yeah.
What does Thanksgiving and Christmas look like for the Kutcher family?
Well, again, for us, it's just about being together. And so my daughter's birthday is actually, she's a Thanksgiving baby in my mind. So that's always, so that's a big part. She wasn't born on Thanksgiving, but close. So it's right around there.
Yet another excuse for you to give thanks for your daughter.
Yes, exactly. And so for us, it's being together as a family and being appreciative of what we have, finding ways in which we give back. We don't really have too many traditions around Thanksgiving and Christmas besides just being together, playing games, trying not to watch too much TV, just being purposely together. If I can play a board game, I'm all in. So if I can get other people to play games like that, I'm all in.
I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
What is the board game weapon of choice for you? What are you unbeatable at?
Oh, I don't know that I'm unbeatable, but I will say I'm known for a mean Scrabble game.
Scrabble.
And so sometimes I get teased about that a little bit from my friends, but I do love games or strategy type games like Settlers and things.
Well, I'll do what I can to hoard those Q and X tiles on my Scrabble thing for you. Jennifer Kutcher,
Thanks.
President and CEO of Whatcom Educational Credit Union. This has been fabulous.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being a part of our Bellingham Podcast story. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so very much. It's an honor and a privilege.
All right,
Love
continued
being
success.
Here. All right, thank you.
Okay, so a CEO, a Scrabble, and kickboxer. Oh, okay. What are you going to tell me next? That she's a superhero?
It could very well be. I didn't get that far into the interview. You know, we only had a certain amount of time. But yes, I'm glad I'm on Jennifer's good side. Let's put it that way.
Seriously.
Anyway, big thanks to Jennifer Kutcher, President and CEO of WECU, for taking the time to be part of our Bellingham Podcast story.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show.
And it was great to have a conversation. By the way, I just have to say, the conference room that we had the interview in, glorious view of a crisp fall Bellingham afternoon.
Ooh.
And I had a view of the water because, one of their offices is down near the water and stuff. Thoroughly was envious of that type of view. I kind of just took my time and going. It was great.
So you're meaning you met with the CEO in the corner office?
Just about. Yeah,
That's cool. That's cool.
We'll call it the corner office. It's a really nice place. But anyway, moving on. Where are we headed next in the upcoming episodes? Now that we're looking forward in 136 and beyond, AJ.
Oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's hygge season. So what better way to start with, talking about the facts that you and I are maximalists and we don't like anything that isn't part of the zeitgeist, right?
Yes, I'm all about the new shiny.
But along those same lines, so Chris and I are kicking around this idea of kind of doing an episode coming up soon regarding seeing a little bit of the alternative side of pop culture. So that's all I'm going to tease right now.
It's a slight tease. It's more like a wink or a come hither look as opposed to for a future episode. We've been kicking around some ideas about how to approach this fall season and upcoming holiday season.
Oh, yeah, holidays. That's a thing.
In a different mindset because it needs to happen.
Sure.
All right, let's stick a fork in the show. This has been wonderful. Go for it.
That wraps up for this 135th edition of the Bellingham Podcast. Thank you again so much for listening to us, rating us, reviewing us, wherever you like to get our podcast. Remember, if you're in the Bellingham area, you might be listening to us on KMRE 102.3 FM.
They're community powered without pause like you just had, and they're also streaming worldwide on www.kmre.org.
Yeah, where Chris said. And on that note, thank you again so much, Jennifer, for being on the show. I'm AJ Barsay.
And I'm Chris Powell. Thanks very much for joining us on the Bellingham Podcast.
sunny day? What are you talking about?
It's the alternative to the dreary weather we've been having.
Oh, snap.